And welcome to the channel. My name is Shannon Rifkin, and in this week's video we'll be discussing Crown Limited. But the question of the show is, what is the future of the bids for Crown Limited in the wake of the damaging Royal Commissions in Victoria and Western Australia? So of course last year, at the beginning of last year or early this year, we saw Blackstone approach Crown with an unsolicited and non-binding offer of $10.85. Blackstone had also started the probity process with gaming commissions in the respective states in which Crown has assets. That subsequently led to offers from, proposals rather, I should say, from Star Group and Oaktree Capital as well. All three really trying to capitalise on the troubles of a business, both because of its legal issues, but also, of course, a business that's has suffered pretty heavily in the wake of the pandemic, and clearly offers, I would say, would be considered opportunistically timed. We did see the New South Wales Royal Commission conclude late last year, early this year, which was undoubtedly quite damning, but ultimately the recommendations put forward were manageable, in that it wasn't suggesting that Crown's license be stripped from it, but rather it couldn't operate a license until certain changes had been made, one of which of course would be James Packer's stake in the business being reduced significantly. And I think perhaps the market was less concerned about the Victorian and Western Australian Royal Commissions because of how New South Wales one had gone. But of course, in the middle of this Victorian one, and things have gone very, very poorly, with certainly some worst case scenarios being painted by some analysts suggesting that its license could be stripped. And as you've seen here, the share price of what I've got here is Crown, Star Group, which is I think the only Australian listed competitor with casinos that would be considered comparable, and Wynn Group, which is a company with mostly its assets in Las Vegas, but a company that did actually make an approach for Crown some time back as well. So just to give an idea of the sell-off, from the beginning of the pandemic, how quickly Crown bounced back, because really its assets are almost, I'd say, the envy of the Asia Pacific region, and as we've gotten to this period where we've seen takeover approaches, and that's come even higher as Blackstone first increased their offer, but also we saw Star and Oaktree put forward proposals, and now this is the result of both the lockdowns in Victoria, but also of course the Royal Commission in Victoria. And of course this has all resulted in last week the Star Entertainment Group board putting out an announcement saying that they're going to withdraw their proposal for the moment while they see how the Royal Commissions pan out. And here is the announcement of the original proposal that is now being withdrawn, which I should say that the proposal from Star was comes, of course, with significant synergies, and I think was probably a deal that, at the right terms, the Crown Board probably would have been quite happy to proceed with, but not surprisingly, they've been quite distracted with what's been going on with that Victorian Royal Commission. So look, where to from here? I've gone back to this chart. Look, to some degree, I've been a little surprised by the severity of the sell-off in Crown. It's now closed at $8.80 or so, which is now, almost $3 below where Blackstone's put its money on the table. Yes, that's a non-binding offer, and I would not be surprised to see Blackstone also wait in the wings a little bit longer to see how this all plays out. But there's no doubt that these assets remain very attractive, even if the worst case were to happen for Crown, and for Crown itself to no longer be able to operate the casino in Melbourne. That is the only facility available to operate a casino, at least at short notice. There's no way a casino in Melbourne is going to operate anywhere else in the immediate future. It's the single largest employer in a single site in all of Victoria, and it would be very damaging, of course, for them to simply shut up shop and forbid Crown from trading whatsoever. So I think there are going to be solutions here that aren't necessarily going to be terrible for Crown shareholders, but possibly terrible for some Crown shareholders, such as, I would say, James Packer. Clearly the culture in the past is something that regulators are not going to tolerate, and probably the easiest way to extricate themselves from this issue would be to remove existing board members or those tied to James Packer, and to force a sale, which of course puts the ball back in these bidders' court. So I really do expect we are going to see a takeover bid eventuate. The price, while you could say, well, while these problems are going on, the price is going to, any bid is going to be low, but of course bidders are not going to be limited by simply looking at the problems that the company's facing, but limited by what they think the assets are worth. And in the end, if Blackstone wants to hold off and say, well, we're only going to buy $9, we're only going to make an offer of $9.50 because the company's really under pressure right now and looking for a sale, the problem with that, of course, is there are going to be other bidders, private equity bidders, Star, continue to pushing up the price until we get to that point at which any bidder thinks there's no more advantage in raising their offers. So I think if this one continues to fall, it's probably going to be a good opportunistic buy on the expectation that you will see a takeover. And any takeover will take time, of course, because of those probity clearances that will be required, which does complicate that story a little bit. But for the most part, if we look back in 5 years, I'll say it's highly likely that Crown would have been bought during this period, and my expectation it's going to be a price, significantly above $8.80. So any short-term selling could be looked at as a good opportunity. Anyway, that's it for this week's video. If you like the video, please click like and subscribe, and I will be back next week with a new video.